And now I'll introduce Lion Goodman and Carista Luminare.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting us. And yeah, just very delighted to share a body of life's work in really understanding what love is and what love isn't, what's often called secure love, insecure love, and that I have learned through trial and tribulation, both with my own process and the man and the men I've encountered on many levels, including family of origin, that there is a wisdom to what love is and what it isn't. And there's both the science to it, the neuroscience and the art. And so I've been impassioned with really trying to understand how to master the wisdom of love for myself and find practical, simple ways to pass that wisdom forward to others. So that's what tonight is about. I primarily have studied the attachment model. I was one of the original attachment specialists back in the 80s with my dissertation in prenatal psychology and understanding how childhood attachment with each primary attachment figure really impacts our adult intimacy dynamics. So looking forward to sharing that with you today.
Thanks. I'm Lion Goodman. Many of you know me. I'm one of the founders of the Tribe of Men. Happy to be here among you all. And I can say that I thought I knew a lot about love, and then I met Carista. And she taught me so much about love that I didn't know. And now I take that wisdom and share it with other people. So very grateful to you for all that I've learned about love. And I think that's probably enough. Let's just dive
Yeah,
in.
let's just dive in.
Okay, could we have the first slide, please?
Yes, indeed.
Right,
Are you seeing it now?
we are. Carista, take
Great.
it away.
Yeah. So this became my brand, my eighth or ninth brand, to really try to offer a practical understanding of what the path is, how to understand what secure love is and what secure insecure love is. It's often called secure attachment, secure functioning relationships. I call it secure love. We call it secure love. They're all synonymous. So if you hear the different terms, it's all, whenever you hear secure, it's the same thing, and insecure is the same thing. So the confused about love notion came to me when I was in the middle of the Hoffman process in a crisis in another relationship. And there are 40 people a week together looking at what they call the negative love syndrome, how our early childhood, first 13 years impacts our relationship to our ability to love, our actual ability to love. And after a week with these people and hearing all these distinctions and variations, I had this epiphany, and it was what everyone shares in common here is they're massively confused about what love is and what it isn't. And that became another kind of research project for me to understand, if we're all confused about love, then what's the antidote? And that's kind of the subtitles to a lot of what we do, which is to get clear and be wise and feel secure. So this is what we're about to be doing.
Okay, next slide.
So the negative love patterns, a theme that I really picked up from the Hoffman Institute, is seen in our primary attachment figures. Some of this seems obvious to the mind, but yet we're run by these, how we bonded with each parent really defines our understanding. If love feels secure, meaning that we feel safe, peaceful, uh, we feel like we're in that person's care, and we can trust that person to really hold us when we're in distress. And so looking at your primary attachment figures, if you're lucky and had two primary ones, mother and father, classically, for those of us who are older now, there's all kinds of combinations of same-sex marriages or single parents. But we're kind of, when you see mom and dad, that's an old slide actually, more the classic dynamic of having a primary masculine, primary feminine attachment figure. And each parent, how they related to us, is hardwired into our understanding of how we get our needs met, what our feelings are. Now we have to add, some people have other primary caregivers, whether it's nannies, mannies, grandparents, older sisters, brothers, aunts, uncles, even some teacher allies can end up being primary caregivers. It's more unusual. So we want to look to anyone who is our attachment figure as we talk about this today. Next slide. Another angle, cultural influences makes a big difference. Particularly find this with people from cultures where, let's say, for example, some of my clients who are from India, where the caste system is really behind arranged marriages, for example, where the notion of whether we're compatible, whether we really love each other is not considered the priority. And I have modern clients who still, some of them are really under this expectation. So in cases like that, or, you know, all of our different religious, one culture might be stoic in their emotional nature, another might wear their emotions on their sleeves, some, you know, children to be seen but not heard. All of these deep beliefs, here with the belief master here, he can embellish this, are defining what we can expect in terms of how we get cared for, the nature of the bond. And so we're just opening up this notion that we're really filtering our experience of love from many different forces that are hardwired, past, present. And anything you want to add about the beliefs to that?
Yes, we'll say this a couple of times, but we learn what love is by experiencing how our parents love us, or how they love each other, or both, how our siblings love us. So we grow up in the environment of whatever environment you get, that's what love is for you. And so our distinction is, well, maybe some of that isn't love. And we learn what love is, we learn what love actually is, instead of what we learned what love was in our families.
Yeah. For example, if there's a lot of trauma, a lot of drama, a lot of reactivity, alcoholism, abuse, we actually experience that love comes with feeling in danger, or feeling frightened, or feel, you know, love is mixed with anger, love is mixed with torment, or just being ignored. So let's keep going.
Yeah, and then what happens is that we tend to be attracted to people who remind us of our family. They feel familiar. And so we tend to repeat the patterns of our childhood of what we think love is in our adult relationships.
And we also can rebel against the pattern.
Next slide.
Next slide. So the 4 love styles, Lion and I came up with the term love style instead of attachment style. Again, synonymous. It just is more relatable, how our style of love. So there's secure love style, insecure anxious, insecure avoidant, and insecure traumatic. So you're seeing that actually there's 4 love styles. 3 of them are all under the insecure category, which a lot of people really don't understand until they're really clarified. So when you're in secure love style, you are feeling 80% of the time, most of the time, 4 to 5 interactions, you're feeling this feeling like, I feel safe, just like the word says. You're my go-to person when I'm in distress. You are my, you know, you are committed to relieving my distress, especially if you're the cause of it. And there's a sense that I can trust you. You know, we're each other's priority. We're in each other's care. The insecure anxious love style, which we're going to really drill these down, is just like it says, when triggered. Insecure means when we're triggered. And we'll share with you what goes on in the brain. When we go into fight or flight, actually the anxious is the one that goes into flight. And I'm in that sub club. When I get triggered, you know, we get
fight.
What?
Fight. I think anxious is fight.
What did I just say?
You said flight.
Oh, yes. Anxious is flight, and we fly up. You can see it. We're what we call hyper aroused, and the anxiety is quite apparent. We'll break it down for you very, very soon. The insecure avoidant is just like it says. They, Lion, is that style, go into avoidance. Bye, I'm triggered. See you later. They're the ones that leave, shut down, withdraw. And then the insecure traumatic is on top of number 2 or 3. You're either insecure anxious or insecure avoidant when you trigger, fight or flight. The insecure traumatic is on top of that. It means when I get triggered in anxiety or avoidance, I go into a traumatic reaction. What does traumatic mean? It means I get disassociated. I start to, you know, I experience a lot of the historic scar tissue in this moment that's much kind of inflaming my experience of what's happening, because whatever's happening with us right now is feeling really traumatic. It's overwhelming me. Trauma means overwhelming the brain, the heart's ability to actually digest what's happening. Again, we'll vet these out in detail.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
Yeah, and these are some slides from a big teleseminar class that we present. So some of the things you'll see in the slides, like the basic building blocks of love, they have to do with a whole nother presentation. But again, this is just the flavor of you're either securely bonded with your partner, your kids, your colleagues, or you're insecurely bonded. The attachment, the feeling, the connection. So these are the kind of the general distinctions here, right? You feel, these feelings when you don't feel safe, you feel insecure. When you can't trust the person, you feel insecure. Something's wrong. When you feel secure, there are all these wonderful, warm feelings. Next slide.
Yeah, that's the glory part, is when you feel
Right.
secure, it feels wonderful.
Yeah. So I love this slide from one of our talks because it captures this sense of secure attachment, that there's the child being that loving. I feel safe. I'm in your care. I can tell you're really attuned to my need for comfort, and we never outgrow this need. And that's what the neuroscience has shown us. Very important for you independent folks, or the ones who believe I need to be whole and complete unto myself before I can have a healthy relationship. It's actually the neuroscience and attachment work. Attachment research just blows that out of the waters. We actually thrive and do best, just like this child, when we have a go-to person in our life that we can depend on, especially when we're distressed, that will help regulate us. I mean, here's kind of the older, the wise elder version. They're in a state of joy. They could be holding each other where one's crying. It's the same thing. That go-to person, everyone thrives and never outgrows the need to have that one person. Now, if you don't have a romantic partner, and sometimes your romantic partner is the threatening relationship, even it could be your girlfriend, guy friend, your tribe of men, your therapist, your aunt. So it's that person that you can be yourself with, who can hold you like this. That's what it feels like, secure attachment.
Next slide.
So we are making these distinctions here for you to get more specific understanding. Again, the secure love style, the key theme is I trust you, other person, this connection, at least 80% of the time. It means, sure, 20% of the time, that's more kind of the lowest level of secure attachment. I'm not feeling so connected to you. You're annoying me. I'm overwhelmed with work. Kids are getting in the way. Having a hard week. Got an illness. It's not a perfect state. The key is that we commit to the majority of the time really showing up, giving each other this direct experience of these behaviors, that we create security for the other. We make the relationship. We soothe each other's distress. Now, I really love this distinction because the research shows 25 years of neuroscience research, over 2,000 studies, that the number one criteria of happy couples, long-lasting couples, is not whether they know nonviolent communication or all the tricks and different practices. They make each other's distress the priority to relieve. Okay, so relieving each other's distress is what love is to the child. The child cries in the night. The child, so-and-so is bullying me on the playground. And the secure attachment parent goes, come here, I'm going to help you figure it out. It matters. You're upset. And the same thing as partners, right? It's like, Lion, I'm just really having a hard week. I just really need your help.
Tell me about it. I'm here for you.
I need to talk to you about it. And oh, by the way, what you said to me this morning really, really upset me.
Oh, I'm sorry. So tell me more about that.
You care?
I do care.
You care that you upset me?
I do care.
So it's that practical. And most couples who have a lot of insecurity, a lot of drama, a lot of processing, a lot of estrangement, they have no idea that very experience is an opportunity to create secure attachment. It's not a perfect state. It's two people are committed to actually care to heal those estranged cycles and those feelings of insecurity. Anything you want to add?
I just want to point that the beliefs, the feelings, and the behaviors are all very integrated, right? You can read them for yourself, but essentially, this is an active practice. We could say I feel loved, but it needs to be refreshed. Like, I'm not feeling loved right now. Would you love me, please? Or, it's like feelings are changing constantly. the beliefs can be fairly stable, but the behaviors need to be practiced over and over again to create that
Absolutely.
security feeling over and over again. A child never loses the need to be comforted or to be loved or cared for or cared with. And those patterns and those needs, we never outgrow them. We still need them today.
Yeah. And if you need it, right? It's like, oh, my partner's not paying attention to me. They cause distress. I don't feel like a priority. The complaints that I'm not getting these behaviors and these feelings. Part of being an adult, differently than being a child, is to actually lead what you need. So sometimes the partner's preoccupied. They don't know you need connection. So one of the practices are very simple and seem very apparent, and yet many people don't do it. I'm waiting for you to care for me. Oh, I'm the one that needs the caring connection. We haven't had a date night in a while, or we've spent, we haven't gone to bed together. Honey, you know what? I'm really missing going to bed with you tonight.
I've got work.
Well,
I was demonstrating what's not love.
I care about your work, and I'd love to be a party. How soon do you think we could really spend a night together? Because I'm missing our connection.
I need 10 more minutes. Would that work for
I'd
you?
love to give you 10 minutes or the whole night, because you're showing me you care, you want to connect. Next slide. Yeah.
We have to speed it up.
Yeah, okay. We'll speed it up. Guess which style this is? This is again from our larger presentation. So that's insecure anxious, right? On steroids. But that's a child. It's like, I'm anxious. You can see it, right? We call it hyper aroused. It's obvious. That behind that despair is, I need connection. Where are you? I'm in distress. Where are you going? And behind that, underneath that, is the fear of being abandoned. So you look at it in the adult, you see the inner child, you see the baby child in there, right? And many of us, when we're in those reactive states, it's our primitive child. Underneath that whole thing that could go on for hours is the absolute need for connection and the feeling of feeling emotionally and physically abandoned. That's what's behind the whole pattern racket of anxious types.
And they need to be cared for.
They need to be cared for, yeah.
Next slide.
So we see these distinctions. You can read them here. We'll just pull out a few really primary ones. That feeling of, you don't care about me, I'm not important to you, that's what's creating the anxiety. I don't feel you want this connection. And they're often called anxious pursuance in the attachment literature, because we pursue, right? We pursue through yelling. I'm in that club. So we pursue through criticizing. It's that, you just saw it in the picture. That's the pursuer. We knock on the door. Of course, if you're with an avoidant, next slide, they're the ones I often see in the couples work. The avoidant is just the opposite. You're in fight. See you later. You're flooding me. You're in fight. I'm in flight, right? Which makes me more anxious because you're abandoning me. Where are you going? I need you. Wait, I need to resolve this before I go to bed. What? And he hasn't told me yet why he's avoiding me, because I'm overwhelming him with my escalation and anxiety. So if you would just speak and tell me why you're disappearing.
Oh, I gotta get out of here. I got work to do.
Right. And then there it goes. It's a vicious cycle. So the insecure avoidant and the insecure anxious are plug and play for drama and trauma. They need opposite things. You can talk about this one since it's yours.
Okay. So I call myself a recovering avoidant type, because you can go to the next slide. Because I've had to learn as an avoidant type, my natural tendency is to disappear. And I tell the story that my first wife, God bless her, if we got into a fight, it would take me 3 days to come back into relationship. And I didn't know it at the time, but this caused great damage. And today, after all this work and learning and growing, it now takes about 5 minutes. And 5 minutes, we can have a fight, and I go away and I say, oh yeah, I'll be back in 5 minutes. I got to take care of myself. And then I can come back and we can repair. So that's the key. That's one of the keys we'll be talking about later, is how quickly can you repair. But the other thing I've needed to learn was how to go counterintuitive, because if Carista's upset, my tendency is to go away, but I know what she needs now. I understand that she's an anxious type and she needs connection. So instead of going away, I come this way, and then she quiets down because she's getting what she needs. So this is the lesson of the avoidant type, is give what they need, not what you need.
Right. And being an anxious when highly triggered, not so much anymore, but when lion goes away, if he tells me he's coming back, then that primitive part of my brain goes, oh, you're going to take care of yourself. You need space. Then I take the space to self-regulate myself, get myself out of anxiety, be more pro-relational, be more available, less overwhelming. So sometimes if even I'm escalating and I feel like, uh-oh, it's getting out of control, I call the need for space because it allows me not to overwhelm him and pursue, get myself back in my adult emotional body. And then he doesn't have to withdraw so hard.
That's right. It's much easier for me when she says, I'm upset, I'm going away. Wow, that's a great relief. Okay, now I can, now we can, now I'm good, you know. So obviously these are the beliefs, feelings, and behaviors of the avoidance style.
Yeah.
Underneath avoidance is actually anxiety. Like, I'm not going to get cared for, so I'm going to take myself away and care for myself.
That's right.
Or I'm going to go find something to substitute, like, you know, a bottle or a thumb or work.
As a child, as a
Right.
child,
Right.
couldn't depend on anyone.
Right.
No one valued my feelings. The connection was unreliable. You know, forget it. I'm not going to depend on other. I'm going to learn to self-regulate, take care of myself, shut down, not need anyone. Those are the beliefs. That's not the truth. It's an adaptive strategy.
Right. And parents are often very supportive of self-regulating children. It's like, oh, look at little Johnny, he's just fine by himself, without recognizing that that he's withdrawn into himself because he's not getting what he needs. So,
Yeah. Especially with the iPhones and the iPads now, where kids are self-regulating and not knowing that they really need human connection. Next slide.
okay, next slide.
Okay, this one, we pulled this, this is what it feels like, right? When you just get, these are two highly anxious types in this case. They usually create more trauma because they're more dramatic. And the feeling is basically, you want to go to the next slide, hon?
Yeah.
For this one?
Yeah.
So we didn't have the chart for this one. How do you know you're in trauma? How do you know your partner's in trauma? Really, you've escalated. So it's that feeling of like, I'm so triggered, I can't think. I am so triggered. Things are getting so out of control that what's happening is disproportionate to what's really happening. Like, this doesn't make sense. Why are you so frightened? Why are you so, enraged? And why aren't you getting off it? Why are you withdrawing for 3 days? And the bottom line feeling as a child is that you see it here. The child's terrified of the attachment figure, one or both, are really scary. That I can't trust that person. Not only can I not trust them, it's not just like they're avoiding me, they actually terrorize me. So alcoholic parents, parents with abuse, parents raging on each other,
Mentally ill, chaotic.
Unpredictable. And the child, literally the nervous system, they can't process fight or flight. It's like being in 5th gear with fight or flight. It just burns out the system. And so that's what dysregulation, disassociation is. And the child is really frightened. And it's usually just that, like, I had a lot of trauma in my background. So when I first met Lion, if there was something that had triggered, much older than him, and I could tell I was kind of in that spectrum, mild spectrum of trauma, I just say, I'm in a trance, I'm in a trauma trance. And basically it's like, don't mess with me. Don't poke the bear. And you should know I'm not in my rational mind to process anything because I'm so hijacked in this primitive part of my brain, you'll see that up ahead, that it's a waste of your time to get me to really any kind of reasoning. So we got to just stop. You don't keep traumatizing each other. And why do these distinctions make a difference? Because it's fine if two couples have insecure attachment. What most couples don't realize, if they're not committed to being a secure functioning couple, is that they keep hurting each other by kind of repeating the patterns, escalation, instead of saying, stop. If you're in trauma, that matters to me. Part of loving you is helping me, is learning how to not threaten you so that you don't go back into those states of being afraid. Even if it's coming from earlier experience, other partner, really care to not put you in threat. And so we're here to heal each other, not keep hurting each other. That's the difference between secure functioning couples and insecure. It's not a perfect state. We'll keep saying that. Next slide.
Yeah. So when you're in a process as adults, it's hard to remember that you're really dealing with a child reaction, right? So I remember, oh, well, what would I do as an adult if my daughter or son was in a trauma reaction? Well, I wouldn't yell at them. I wouldn't get mad.
Some parents would.
Yes, and a good parent will go and take care of them. And we all need that care that comes from a good parent. And basically we have to learn to reparent ourselves and reparent each other.
Yeah. Good parent means loving.
Great. Next slide. Oh, so now the breakout is going to happen. Let's see. Yes, right. So we're going to break into groups of 4, if that works, Cal or Steve. And we'll take about 2 minutes each to answer these 2 questions. Which love style of these 4 do you recognize in yourself? And by the way, there's a hybrid style, which means we had 2 parents, so we may have had 2 different attachment styles.
2 or more
So
parents.
yeah,
Or one.
2 or more parents.
I'm 2 or more attachment figures. Sorry.
So you may have 2 of them, or even 3. All 3 might you might recognize yourself. Different people will bring out different of our styles. So which ones do you recognize in yourself? And then the question is, the next step is offer 1 or 2 examples of moments when that love style showed up. So when my wife asked me to do the dishes and I just blew up and reacted, I could feel my trauma in that one.
That was my critical mother.
Example. Yeah.
And I went into insecure, anxious, even with a tad of trauma. So you can have all 4. It's good to say, I dominate in one. When I get, secure attachment, I'm like 50% there. I'm 90% there. In the insecure styles, when I get triggered, I dominate in 1 or 2 of them as my go-to style.
There was one more to just mention, and that is what's called protest anxious.
Yeah.
And that's when a person who is escalating, but they're not getting their needs met, and then they say, "Fuck it, I'm out of here." So they kind of reverse into the other strategy.
Yeah. And when you come back, you're going to find out why you trigger.
So secure attachment is what I call the glory of relationship, right? You're loved, you have love to give,
Feels so
you've got
good,
someone like
so
this
safe.
next to you, and you can snuggle up and you can get your needs met. So that's the glory. And then there's the other stuff, the struggles, right? What causes us to react to each other? How do we get triggered? What is going on there? And why do we have that? If we feel so good, why do we suddenly react? And most of the couples we know have times when they trigger each other. Raise your hand if that happens sometimes in your primary relationship that you trigger each other.
Raise your hand if you don't. I don't know. That one. Raise your hand if you don't ever trigger.
Yeah, good. That's easier.
It's
Raise
much
your
more
hand
efficient.
if you don't trigger ever with anyone. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Okay, so so we can assume that you might have some triggers, and so we're going to look into what causes it, because it's really fun and interesting to look at, and it's much better than being triggered. So could we have the next slide, please? All right. So what's happening when we trigger? I'm sure most of you know this already because it's become very popular. The amygdala is what we call the threat detector in the brain. And there's 2 of them, one on each side, and they're connected to the hippocampus, which is what memory, where memory is stored, or where memory becomes long-term. And it's understood now with more and more studies that the amygdala also isn't just a threat detector, it also detects pleasure. And because it's connected to memory, we tend to remember things that are more emotionally charged than that aren't emotionally charged. So our memory system and our threat detector is intimately connected. And so the primary thing that our limbic system is looking for is it safe or is it dangerous? And so we call it a smoke detector and fire alarm. So we'll take the next slide.
Is the behavior feeling safe or feeling dangerous?
Yeah, or the situation. Yeah.
Or the situation.
Yeah.
But we're talking in relationships, it's more like the interaction with the person. Is the behavior feeling threatening,
Right,
or safe?
So when the fire alarm goes off, the reaction is, for most people, get out, right? That's the big response to fire, or call the fire department, or pull the fire alarm. Next slide.
That's the fight or flight
Yeah, that's
dilemma.
right. Now, this particular diagram shows, you can see that in the diagram of the brain, there's a little fire alarm in the middle there, which we call amygdala, the smoke detector fire alarm. And it says, note, it does not actually look like a little fire alarm in the brain. So just in case you're a neurologist, you will not find that.
That's Lion's humor.
Yeah, this is my humor. So when you're in the loving brain, it's the top part of the brain, it's the frontal cortex. And basically what we call green is when things are good, it's loving, and the amygdala is quiet. It's like, oh, everything's good. It's copacetic. That's great. And so then we get to be in pro-relational functions. So we're looking for win-win. We want to maximize our mutual happiness. We're creative, or things are reciprocal. We're both in mutual love zone, right? And that's great. And then the lower part of the brain is what we call the warring brain. This is where the limbic system is and the survival instincts are. And what happens with the amygdala is that it starts off as a smoke detector, which is like, be careful, there might be something going on, be careful. It's kind of on alert, which we call the yellow zone. And then if it believes that there's a fire, then the fire alarm goes off and says, alarm, fire, 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 watch out. Next slide.
Wait, before.
Yes, what?
So what this is really clarifying here, our double appreciation when we've changed that. We call the top functions when you're in the front part of your brain in the green zone pro-relational. That means your ability to be positively relational. And then when you're hijacked in fight or flight, which is the warring brain, we call that, next slide. I just wanted to see the pro-relational distinction, the anti-relational or the non-relational. And this has been inspired by this map of a colleague of ours, John Gray, and others, but we've synthesized it as well.
Right. Now, the key thing to note here is that when the threat alarm goes off or the fire alarm goes off, and the warring brain automatically takes over, it hijacks the loving brain. You go into the fight, flight, freeze, fold reactions, and the cortex, the intellectual brain, basically goes offline. So if you've ever tried to logically work with someone who's emotionally reactive, you probably know how useless that is.
Those vicious processing cycles.
Right. There's really no reason to be upset, but I'm upset. But you know, everything that happened is okay. No, it's not okay. So a lot of triggers happen. Once a trigger happens, you're basically not in your right mind. You're in your subcortical mind. So you can see that in the anti-relational functions, it's being right, attacking, controlling, defending, and shoot first and ask questions later. And then there's the non-relational functions. This is the more avoidant type. So withdraw, escape, distance, shut down, and give up. And again, when you're in those kinds of reactions, you can't really be talked to. There's no reason to go into conversation mode. You want to say something?
Yeah, this is so profound, this particular notion that Lion's talking about. As clinically as a therapist, counselor, for years in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, it was like, let the client have their feelings. The clients would come in, the couple come in, and they just rant, like, have your truth. Fine, have your truth, but don't expect there to be any healing. It wasn't until the neuroscience that I realized this is really a complete waste of time, because when we're not able to be those pro-relational functions of empathy and appreciation and all the solutions where it's win-win, and mutual care, mutual understanding, all up here in green, there's no point. I can't care for you when you're yelling at me. How can I care for you when you're raging on me and you're attacking me or you're disappearing on me? You expect me to keep my heart open? And here's the thing, you can't trick the brain. So if you're in fight or flight, and you're in fight or flight because you're not able to be in an open-hearted state with a quiet mind, then stop. That's when you want to call it time out, pause, as couples, parents, child, colleagues, time out. There's nothing productive we can really resolve until we both get self-regulate or co-regulate together and get ourselves back to at least pale yellow. And most people don't realize that. That's these late night cycles of couples processing. It's like, have your truth, but that's not love. Because you can have your truth and rage and rant at someone, they're feeling judged, that's contemptuous. It's all the four horsemen of the Gottman work, the four divorce indicators, judgment. I'm having my truth, but you're doing it judgmentally. It's like, I don't care what you have to say. You may have all kinds of insight on me. It feels so aggressive, so hurtful, the way you're saying it, that I can't even care for what you're saying, even if it's riddled with truth. So a lot of what we offer in the rewiring from insecure to secure attachment is how a couple speaks to each other to lower the threat and to care when your partner tells you that their behavior feels threatening, even if you don't mean it. Like Lion, when we first met, he'd say, "You sound like my critical mother." And I'm like, no one else has ever told me that. I'm just Carista having my truth. Like, I know I've got all the, imagine being in a relationship with me with all my notions, and then it was, once I realized whether I mean it or not, there's something in my voice tone and pacing that sounds like his critical mother. It's in my best interest to change that behavior, to care for him so he doesn't feel, he can really not have the mother projection on me. Well, to care for him to be heard and to also not have to deal with his mother projection, and I'll be heard and cared for a lot more efficiently as well. So it's a mutual interest to care for each other's triggers.
Yes, and we're going to be we're going to do a breakout group shortly, and then we're going to come back and talk about ways to untrigger, to undo the triggers, and basically
dismantle them.
Yeah, the simple idea is that if your partner is triggered or if you're triggered, the goal is to get from the red zone, the trigger zone, to back to the yellow and then back to the green. Because it's only when you're both back in green that you can actually have a conversation and work it out, whatever the issue is. So other than that, don't bother because it's not going to work. All right. So
That's good.
Yes. Okay, good. So we're going to go into another quick breakout. And the two questions are, what regularly triggers you in your current or recent past relationship? So this is like what's regular about it. What do you often get triggered by? And what do you know about the source of that particular trigger reaction inside of you, especially from your childhood? Like, for example, for me, it's being criticized. Why? Because my mother was hypercritical. So that's a simple one. But if you know what the thing is that, where your button is pushed, that's what you want to share with your partners. So we're ready to go back into breakouts. So many of you are parents, and when you have a crying baby, you know what to do, right? You don't know quite why the baby's crying, but you have an instinct to get the baby to stop crying. So the first thing you do is what? You pick them up and you hold them and say, "It's okay, I got you." And then you start checking. Is it the diaper? Is it the hunger? Is it, so you do kind of the diagnosis, and you may hold the baby that's crying and say, "It's okay. It's okay. I'm here. I got you. You're okay. You're okay." And so we have the touch, and we have the eye gazing, and we have the soft voice. "I got you. It's okay." All of those things the baby can respond to and often will settle down. The baby's in its limbic panic mode or fire alarm is going off. Something's wrong, something's wrong, something's wrong. And all it knows how to do is to cry. And so the goal here is to get the baby from the fire is happening to maybe it's okay to I'm okay. And then it can like relax. Off to you.
Okay. So what Lion just said was there's 3 nonverbal love languages that we as parents, or our parents to us, had available to actually communicate love to us, because up until 2 years of age or older, more towards 3, the brain doesn't understand words. So how does the parent soothe the child in those situations? He was saying when they're in distress, "I got you." It's not the words, it's the tone. "What are you waking me up for?" Feel the difference? The child doesn't hear the words, it hears the tone of the voice of the parent. The scary parent is the one that's angry that we've woken him up. The loving parent is, "I got you, honey." And then to Lion's point, "I got you," holding the body. So voice, body language, 3 nonverbals, touch, okay, or "What do you mean I'm upset?" Right? The attachment figures, just completely denying that there's any problem, but their voice and their body language is closed, and the child's there freezing at any age. And then the eyes, that's the third nonverbal, is like, again, I'm not upset with you. And the eyes look scary and angry, but the words are different. It doesn't matter because all of us across the board, this is neuroscience 101, we are reacting first to the nonverbals. So if there's incongruity between what we're saying and what our eyes, tone of voice, and body language is doing, the brain will go for the nonverbals first, because that was our first language of love, how we were soothed or not, ignored or not, threatened or not. And that's really key with couples. So, for example, I had a rageaholic father. Lion's not a rager. When he gets triggered, though, he goes more into the anger, quiet. He's more quiet anger. Okay. So my child, you could say, oh, I'm not with my, scary father. When I first met Lion, he has a tone that's he gets stern. I mean, he kind of gets in his intellect. We're very open with our process with people. We do this a lot. So he's just frustrated.
I do not have that tone.
He's just frustrated. He's not even angry, but his lips will get kind of tight and his skin will go white. Well, my traumatized child from my developmental trauma got so vigilant of my dad's precursors before he would rage that I would watch his mouth and I would notice the tightness. Okay, so any man I'm with, if they have that, Lion's mouth begins to purse. He doesn't even know he's frustrated. I'm like onto it before he is, right? My primitive brain is like, uh-oh. At first it was like, I'm in trouble, right? And so I can also make shit up. I can make assumptions, that he's really angry with me or he's just frustrated, but my primitive brain is reading all the nonverbals. So I learned, rather than assume he's angry or I'm in trouble, saying to my child, I, the adult, I'm gonna check this out. Hey, honey, are you upset with me? Rather than spin myself like the child would as a child. And so knowing how our partner triggers us with some of those nonverbals can really, really make a difference. The tone of voice we brought up, with Lion, which was when I remind him of his critical mother. Now, if he says to me, he doesn't like my tone of voice, and he says, I don't like your tone of voice, and he actually criticizes me about being critical with him, there's nothing that will get me more defensive. That was my biggest wound with my mother. It's the parent who hits the child for hitting the sibling and says you shouldn't hit. So if he's criticizing me about criticizing him, you don't get it.
Another one is when she says, are you angry with me? And I go, no, I'm not angry. Like, that's clearly the nonverbals are taking over the words, right? The words are like, forget it. It's clear you're upset.
So
you may notice these things in yourself.
So become more keen. Now, here's the antidote. If he says, I'm being critical, while being critical, I'm not going to take his influence. If he tells me what he wants and says, honey, I need you to talk in a more soft voice, or I need you to talk slower, I need to feel your heart. Can you try again? Can you reset right now? You seem escalated and I'm getting hijacked. My child's hearing it. Then, or it's not even that much data. It's just like, tell me what you want. So we often will criticize each other what we're not getting. And the real practice is to inform each other, hey, could you just soften your gaze? It's feeling kind of stern right now. And it's making me feel, really triggered. Can you talk in a more loving tone? I could really care for your feelings if you would just take a breath and come more from your heart, because I'm getting hijacked.
Now, it's really hard to do that when you're triggered.
It is.
So the 3 nonverbal love languages are kind of a shortcut to getting the person back into green, because our infant selves know that if someone's doing this, then you're safe, or the soft voice, it's okay, honey, I got you, right? So if I can go counterintuitive, my intuition is to leave, right? So, but if I can approach her and hold her in her upset,
He's the loving guy.
Yeah, then she's going to calm down so much quicker.
Fast.
That it's almost a miracle, right? And so the combination of, touch, warm touch, soft voice, and eye gazing, and just say, I'm your friend. I'm not your enemy. I'm here for you.
Oh yeah, you are. I'm not in trouble.
That's secure functioning at its best. So we want to encourage you to try this in your relationship if you don't already. And that is to, when you're upset, try to do the opposite of what your instinct is, and to use those 3 nonverbal love languages as a way to calm the situation down, go from red to yellow to green.
Yeah.
And
So
say the 3 again. I think I got the
Yeah.
tone
Yeah.
and I got
So physical touch,
physical touch.
pick up the baby first.
Ah.
The second is soft tone of voice.
Mhm.
You could be
You're okay. That's what the loving parent
right.
says. I
And-
got
and
you.
to a baby, you could be reading the encyclopedia in that way, and it
Yeah.
would be fine. It's like, oh, Lepidoptera, that is the butterfly family, and it includes the caterpillars. And the baby's going,
And the
"Ah."
eyes is the third one.
And the eyes.
Eyes.
stop
Loving
eyes.
gaze, loving gaze.
Yeah.
And Lai and I came up with something, I don't know, well over a decade ago when we first got together. There was more reactivity for sure. And we learned this. And so we decided when we get in a high trigger, we would just lie down in bed together. Right. Because just like the crying hysterical child, when the parent goes, I got you. We had a fight. I even do this with my daughter to this day. It's like, I got you, I'm not in trouble with mom. It's okay. Boom. You cut the processing cycle from like 2 hours to like 2 minutes.
Mhm.
All that feeling like you're feeling threatening. Oh, you're telling me love, it's safe. So if you have the mindfulness and if the person's open and they like touch, hugging, touching the foot before you process. Right now, I'm feeling kind of edgy with you, but we want to talk. Can we touch feet? I calm me down. Sometimes I'll say to Lion, I can't look you in the eye right now if I'm really triggered. I'm letting him know don't depend on my eye gaze because I'm inside myself. So I make it very mindful. Can you talk slower? I can really hear you. I'm getting, it's like too edgy. So you inform each other what you want. As a matter of fact, the last time we got in a conflict, I remember, and we were sitting on the couch, we were talking about something, we both got triggered and we stopped. We've learned to stop. And then we have a particular signal where it's like when all else fails, we have this one. We made it up actually from something my grandmother taught me. My grandmother taught me something when she'd get upset with me and we'd heal it. She'd go to repair it. She'd go, what are we? And we go, pals, right? It's like instant. So now we just go, we could be driving the car, whatever. It's like when it puts out the pinky, you always, always, always accept someone's bid to repair.
Yeah.
Always.
There you
Why?
go.
Just this. It's like, okay, let's start the repair. You're my friend.
Right.
Whatever it is, sing a jingle. We have jingles we sing to each other.
This basically means we're friends, not enemies, because it's when you're hijacked, that other person is the threat, is the enemy. And we got to
Warring
come
brain.
back. We got to remember, oh yeah, I remember we're friends.
Yeah.
And that just drops the threat level way down.
Yeah, it's like truce. So you
Mhm.
find these little gestures. We have little song ditties and such, or if before we process something, it's like, let's hug each other, belly, belly, where the oxytocin is released. You can even pick up your shirt, skin to skin, really 90 seconds. Like, I'm sorry, I'm really upset, but I want to heal with you. And I want to heal with you. Can I hug first? Just like, that just puts you right into loving brain, or the aura of loving brain, takes all that fight or flight, takes the heat out really quickly to that point. And then we'll open up for questions. We're really saying, and this is based on the neuroscience, the secure functioning couple, secure attachment couple really thrives when they make a commitment to repair quickly. That as my colleague Stan Tatkin has really illustrated, he says, secure functioning couples, they fight. He's a neuroscientist. They fight. They just know how to fight well. And the way we really have made that simple is that the commitment is when we're triggered, co-triggered, that's the hardest, right? When one can't lead the repair and you're both kind of in your corners, right? That sometimes, I'll just use one more example. I learned one day, I had an epiphany. I'm like, he started the fight. I was loving. He was a jerk. Therefore, he's the one that you repair. Watching my clock, I'm getting more anxious. I don't want to go to bed upset. I don't want to ruin the Sunday. Oh, yeah. It's in my best interest to lead the repair because we all feel like shit when we're in red or orange. So I'll do it for myself because I want to get out of feeling anxious. So, we have enough trust between us that we have an agreement. If one leads a bid, you always accept it. Even if it's like, I'm not ready yet, honey. I get it. You want to connect. That matters to me. How about 5 minutes? Okay. Can we, to have a quick hug? I'm not ready yet. I will hug you when I come back. Why don't you go do something to, soothe yourself? And I'm going to do that. We're going to come back and reset. And the intent is we both benefit by getting back to green. And our day is much better. The quality of our day is better when we're in green. So do it for yourself. Lead the repair. Whoever can do it first. Yeah, enough
Yep.
on that.
Yep. And we have
Good tip.